Noah was a quiet soul, not because he didn't have anything to say, but because he carried something inside that kept him silent: fear. From the outside, he seemed ordinary, but inside, Noah was filled with ideas, dreams, and thoughts that could change his world. Still, every time he tried to take a step, fear held him back. He would stand in front of opportunities and freeze. His heart would race, his hands would shake, and that little voice in his head would whisper, "You're not ready." So Noah waited. He waited for the fear to go away. He waited to feel brave. He thought confidence would come one day like a lightning bolt, and only then he would be ready to act. But that day never came. Every morning he woke up with new goals in his heart. Every night he went to bed with regret, wondering why he couldn't move forward. He'd see others doing the things he dreamed of doing: starting businesses, creating music, speaking on stage, living fully. And he'd wonder, what do they have that I don't? The answer, he thought, was confidence. He believed you needed to feel strong before you could act. And so, day after day, he did nothing. Fear sat like a shadow beside him, whispering reasons to delay, to pause, to stay safe. But the truth was something Noah hadn't yet learned. And the truth would come from the most unexpected place. One evening, Noah sat in the park watching the sunset. His thoughts swirled, heavy with frustration and sadness. That's when an older man sat down next to him. He had calm eyes, weathered hands, and a peaceful presence. The old man looked at Noah and said quietly, "You're thinking too much, aren't you?" Noah nodded, a little surprised. The man smiled gently and said, "Fear is just your imagination holding your future hostage." Noah blinked. He had never heard it said that way before. The words settled deep inside him like seeds waiting to grow. Fear is just your imagination holding your future hostage. It was like something inside him clicked. He realized he had been waiting for something that didn't exist. He had been looking for courage to arrive before taking the first step. But maybe the first step came before courage. Maybe you don't wait to be fearless. Maybe you move forward while you're still afraid. That night, Noah sat alone and thought long and hard. In the quiet of his room, he whispered to himself, "What if I just try?" That simple question became the spark. He didn't need to be perfect. He didn't need to be ready. He just needed to move, to try, to begin. That's how real change starts, not with a roar, but with a whisper, with a moment, with a step. And that's what Noah was about to take. His first shaky, beautiful step toward action. Even though fear was still there, for the first time, it didn't win. The next morning, Noah woke up before the sun. His heart was beating faster than usual, not from fear this time, but from something different, something he hadn't felt in a long time. It was hope, not loud or flashy, just a soft feeling in his chest that maybe, just maybe, today could be different. He sat up in bed, and instead of going over his fears like he usually did, he thought about that old man in the park. Fear is just your imagination holding your future hostage. That sentence echoed in his mind like music. It kept playing, gently pushing him to take one small action. And so Noah did something he had never done before. He opened his laptop and signed up for a local event, an open mic night, just 3 days away. It wasn't a big thing, just a short 5-minute talk in front of a small group of people. But for Noah, it felt like stepping into fire. His palms sweated, his heart raced, his fingers trembled as he hit the submit button. And then it was done. He had taken the step, and something strange happened. Fear was still there, but it wasn't as loud. Noah realized something powerful in that moment. Fear was not a wall. It wasn't solid or permanent. It was a shadow. And shadows disappear when you walk toward the light. For years, he thought fear was stopping him. But now he saw the truth. He had been stopping himself. Fear was only powerful when he let it speak louder than his desire to grow. And now that he had taken one step, everything started to shift. The world didn't change overnight, but something inside Noah did. He started preparing his talk. It was messy at first. He wrote, erased, rewrote, practiced, messed up, started again. Sometimes he doubted himself. Sometimes he even considered canceling. But every time fear whispered, "You're not ready," he answered with, I'm doing it anyway. That single decision to act despite fear became the most powerful thing he had ever done. 3 days later, Noah stood backstage waiting for his turn. His heart pounded in his chest like a drum. His legs felt weak. His throat was dry. He looked around at the small crowd and felt the old voice rise again. What if they laugh at you? What if you forget your words? But then he remembered the old man's words again. He remembered how far he had come, and he smiled, not because he wasn't afraid, but because he knew fear no longer had control. It was there, yes, but it wasn't driving the car anymore. When his name was called, he walked to the front slowly. He took a deep breath and he spoke. His voice trembled at first, but then it found its rhythm, and something amazing happened. People listened, they nodded, some smiled, some clapped, and when it was over, Noah stood there surprised not by the crowd's reaction, but by his own courage. He had done it. He had taken action, not without fear, but with it. And that made all the difference. The next morning, Noah woke up with a different kind of feeling. It wasn't just relief. It wasn't just pride. It was momentum. He had faced one of his greatest fears, speaking in front of others. And he had made it through. The fear hadn't vanished, but it had changed. It was quieter now, more like a distant echo than a thunderstorm in his mind. That moment on stage stayed with him, not because it was perfect. It wasn't. He had forgotten a few lines. He stumbled over a sentence or two, but none of that mattered. What mattered most was that he did it. He faced what once felt impossible, and now he realized something powerful. You don't become brave by waiting. You become brave by doing. That's when everything began to shift in Noah's life. He started waking up with purpose. He began making a list of small actions to take each day, not huge steps, just small, consistent ones. He applied to a job he had always wanted but never dared to try for. He reached out to a friend he hadn't spoken to in years because of fear and shame. He even started recording short videos talking about courage, fear, and growth, just using his phone and posting them online. At first, only a few people watched, sometimes just one or two. But he kept showing up, kept speaking, kept trying. That's when he learned another life-changing truth. Consistency beats perfection. It wasn't about being flawless. It was about showing up again and again, even when no one clapped, even when no one noticed. Because every time he showed up, he noticed. He saw himself becoming stronger, more confident, more alive. Of course, the path wasn't always smooth. There were days when fear crept back in, whispering old lies like, "You're not good," or "Who do you think you are?" But now Noah had something he didn't have before: evidence. He had proof that fear didn't need to win. He had proof that action created change. So when fear returned, he met it with kindness and movement. He didn't fight it, he simply walked forward with it. He became friends with his fear in a strange way, because now he saw it not as an enemy, but as a signal that he was growing, a sign that he was moving in the right direction. And with every new action he took, Noah's confidence grew, not because fear was gone, but because he had learned to walk with it. People around him began to notice the difference. His voice was clearer, his posture stronger. He laughed more, smiled more. He became someone others looked to for encouragement, but he never forgot where he started. A quiet man sitting in the park, held back by the heavy hands of fear. And now he was in motion, not rushing, not racing, just moving one honest step at a time. One evening, Noah was walking home after another small speaking event. The night was quiet, the stars were out, and the streets were empty. But inside, his mind was full of peace, full of purpose. He thought about how different his life looked now compared to just a few weeks ago. Before, fear was the loudest voice in the room. Now it was still there, but it had to stand in line behind action, hope, and self-belief. As he passed the same park where he had once sat in silence, he stopped and smiled. He remembered the old man with the gentle voice, the man who said, "Fear is just your imagination holding your future hostage." Noah whispered those words again, softly, as if he was saying thank you. Then a new thought came to him. If fear had once held him back, how many other people were being held back right now? How many were waiting for permission to start? How many were afraid to take the first step? That question stayed with him. It stirred something deeper, because now it wasn't just about his journey. It was about helping others begin theirs. The next morning, Noah opened his notebook and wrote just 3 words: help others rise. It became his new mission. He didn't need to be famous. He didn't need a big platform. He just needed to share his story, one person at a time. So he started meeting people in small groups, sharing how he overcame fear. He began mentoring teenagers who were afraid to speak up. He talked to adults who had given up on dreams. He didn't pretend to have all the answers. He just told them the truth, that fear doesn't lead, but it also doesn't have to lead. That every act of courage begins with a decision to try, even when you're scared. Noah saw people's faces change when they heard this. Eyes lit up, shoulders relaxed, tears came sometimes, and so did laughter. His story became a mirror in which others saw themselves, not as failures, but as fighters, not as lost, but as just beginning. And something beautiful happened. The more he helped others rise, the more he grew. His fear continued to fade, not because it disappeared, but because it wasn't getting fed anymore. He was feeding his faith instead. He saw people take their first steps. People who had once been silent began to speak. People who had been hiding began to shine. And Noah stood beside them, not as a hero, but as a reminder that fear is normal, but it doesn't define you. That courage is a habit, not a feeling, and that sometimes all it takes is one voice, one choice, and one step to change your life forever. As he walked out of another meeting one evening, a young woman stopped him and said, I heard your story 3 weeks ago. I was too afraid to apply for my dream job, but today I did it because of you. Noah smiled, his eyes welled up, not with pride, but with deep, quiet gratitude, because once he had been afraid too, and now he was helping others walk through the same storm he had once thought he'd never escape. Months passed, and Noah's life had transformed in ways he never imagined. He had spoken in front of crowds, helped strangers find their strength, and watched people bloom with courage. All because he once decided to take a single step through fear. But Noah never let himself forget where it all started. Not on a stage, not in a group, but in a park, sitting alone, afraid, lost, tired of being stuck. That's where it began. And because of that, he made it his personal mission to always return to the basics, to remember that small steps matter, that one small act of bravery can open up a new life. So he created something simple but powerful, a little card he would give to people he met, strangers, friends, even people who didn't believe in themselves yet. It had 5 words. You are stronger than fear. Noah didn't print his name on it. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just wanted those words to live on in someone else's pocket, the way the old man's words had lived on in his heart. One afternoon, he returned to the park where it all began, and there, sitting on the same bench, was a boy who looked about 17. He was staring at the ground, his hands trembling slightly. Noah could feel the fear coming off him like heat. He recognized that silence, that loneliness. He sat down beside him gently. They didn't speak for a while, just sat together. Then Noah quietly asked, are you afraid of something big? The boy looked up slowly, surprised that someone saw through him. He nodded. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he didn't say a word. Noah smiled gently. He reached into his coat pocket and handed him one of the cards. The boy took it, read it, looked at him, and something shifted in his eyes. Not a full change yet, but the beginning of one. That moment reminded Noah why he kept going. Because every time he shared his story, someone else found their strength. He learned that purpose isn't always about big success or loud applause. Sometimes it's about quiet moments with one person who just needs to hear, you're not alone. And Noah, he had become the person he once needed. Not perfect, not fearless, but present. Strong in the face of fear, willing to walk forward even when the path wasn't clear. He no longer waited for fear to disappear. Instead, he learned to carry it gently, like a friend who didn't know better. He walked side by side with it, eyes on the future, heart open to possibility. Because at the end of the day, Noah knew one truth. Fear is just a feeling. It can't hold you unless you let it. It doesn't own your dreams. It doesn't write your story. You do. And that story, it starts with action. Noah stood up, looked at the boy once more, and nodded. Then he walked away, slowly, calmly. A man who used to be trapped by fear, now lighting the way for others, one heart at a time.